Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting for the Town Council for the Town of Petawawa to order for September 16th, 2024. Welcome, members of council, staff. We have some special presenters today, and of course, our studio audience. Tonight, we'll for our land acknowledgement, we'll have Councillor Carmody read.
As we gather this evening, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of the Petawawa Town Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin and the Anishinaabe people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years, and we wish to acknowledge our shared responsibilities in responding to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission 94 calls to action. Calls to action number 24. We call upon medical and nursing schools in Canada to require all students to take a course dealing with Aboriginal health issues, including the history and legacy of residential schools, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, Treaty and Aboriginal Rights, and Indigenous teachings and practices. This will require skills-based training in intercultural competency, conflict resolution, human rights, and anti-racism. Recent progress. The Canadian Nurses Association and the Association of Faculties of Medicine of Canada and the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Canada have all adopted policies indicating that all students take some form of Indigenous cultural safety training. For example, with regards to nursing programs, Lakehead University in Ontario requires students to take a course on Indigenous issues, and the University of Alberta's Faculty of Nursing requires undergraduate students to take an Indigenous health course.
Thank you, Councillor Carmody. And now I'd ask if everybody in attendance would please join me and stand for a moment of silent reflection. Thank you very much. I need a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Moved by Councillor Carmody, seconded by Councillor Roots, that the agenda for September 16, 2024 regular meeting of council be adopted as amended. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest on any of the matters before us this evening? No. We'll go to approval of minutes. First up, we have the meeting minutes from the council meeting of August 12th, 2024. I need a motion to approve those minutes. Moved by Councillor Driscoll, seconded by Councillor Coutu, that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held August 26, 2024 be approved as printed and circulated. Are there any questions, comments? I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, we'll get right to our presentations. We have a couple this evening. First up, we have Lauren McKay here, and a proposal to amend property standards bylaws to allow for naturalized yards and lawns. Welcome to Town Council, Lauren. And thanks for joining us this evening. The floor is yours.
Really close. There we go. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all today. Disclaimer before I start, my name is Lauren McKee. I'm a long-time employee of Ministry of Natural Resources and Ontario Parks. However, what I'm presenting today is not representative of the government. It's my own views as a resident of the town of Petawawa. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the property standards bylaw in the town of Petawawa and some opportunities the town has to kind of move forward in 2024, moving forward, bringing us in line with some other municipalities and some more progressive ways of thinking about our role in the environment and things we can do in our own backyard to make it better and more ecologically friendly place. This is probably a refresher to most people in the room, but as we know, pollinators, so insects primarily that pollinate our flowers are in global decline, primarily due to habitat loss, but also climate change and widespread pesticide use. Petawawa itself has lost significant habitat over the years due to development, which is the case for most municipalities across Ontario and across North America. I think the global pandemic really brought to mind for people how important it was to be able to be self-sufficient and be able to grow your own garden and appreciate nature in your own kind of back 40 when you weren't able to go out and do those things due to closures or restrictions on travel, and really appreciated kind of what they had and the value of being able to go outside and get what you need from your backyard or your neighbor's backyard. There's also more people outside walking around, appreciating nature, appreciating those natural spaces that they had. So in looking at different municipalities, there's a whole spectrum of different bylaws, from maintaining short grasses to having a free-for-all, let your lawn grow wild. But I wanted to present to you sort of a spectrum of options that the town could consider, sort of maintaining the balance of people who like really neat and tidy and organized things, and people who like to be a little creative and offer more habitat for wildlife. So I wanted to highlight kind of parts out of the current town bylaw that could be problematic ways of having to enforce these things. There's lots of inconsistencies, so a lot of it's really open to interpretation and kind of up to the discretion of the person looking at it, which leads generally inconsistencies for government, leads to lots of back and forth and letters and he said, she said. So specifically, it talks about lawns being trimmed, but no specific lengths. It talks about unreasonably overgrown, which for me is possibly very different than my neighbor. Cut the grass sometimes. They cut the grass twice a week, 3 times a week, often than the ruler. Long grass, what is grass? So are we talking about turf? Are we talking about manicured lawns? Are we talking about long ornamental grasses? Brush and undergrowth. We live in Petawawa. Most of our brush and undergrowth is blueberries, which is fantastic food crop and great for pollinators. It also has really outdated wording, like injurious insects and vermin, which is again a really outdated term. Bears and wolves were referred to as vermin. Again, most of this, I'm sure, is old news, but the benefits of having more naturalized yard, it does help retain the soil and moisture in the soil. If you're not wasting water watering the lawn, you're not worrying about watering bylaws and when you can and can't water because it's looking after itself. The root system in a naturalized lawn with native grasses, trees, and shrubs has the ability to hold soil and hold moisture. So when we get these big rain events that we're having, seemingly every 3 or 4 weeks now, you're not dealing with washed out ditches, washed out culverts, and washed out chunks of road, which I'm sorry for whoever was on the Lynching Drive and did all the nice sidewalk work and ended up with a giant puddle at the end of it. Roots provides lots of business for our local nurseries. We're going out, purchasing local grasses. Rich seed and seed is becoming a great resource just in general for natural native grasses and plants and flowers, and we have really good information on pollinators and birds and how to naturalize your lawn and garden. We reduce greenhouse emissions. We're not running our lawnmowers all the time. We're not, whippersnippers, gas, and all the rest of that. Just the ability to go outside and walk around your neighborhood and see the butterflies and the birds is great for mental health and also beautifies the town. Especially because we're a nice biking and walking town. There's lots of people out all the time, kind of walking and appreciating. I didn't list all the bylaws and options available, but I did hyperlink them in the handout, some really good examples and some of the frameworks they used to come up with their bylaws. City of Hamilton, City of Toronto had really, really good examples, but some consistencies between them. They all differentiate between turf and manicured lawns and naturalized lawns. They all have a list of invasive species of prohibited plants. They all have something referring to safety, corner lots, we can still see around the corner, access to fire hydrants and things like that. And most of them have some sort of emphasis on communication. So a way of sharing either with your neighbors or with the town that this is what you're doing. You actually have a plan. It's not just a growing free for all. Just to keep that good neighborhood, good neighbor perspective. And it could also, some of them actually have neighborhood walks, so you can actually go and see, people's naturalized lawns, sort of like the old gardening competition there in Pembroke. They used to be where you walk around and see everyone's gardens. But I also wanted to speak this one in here because it's sort of it's consistent with property standards. And I didn't tell Colin about this until I sent us a presentation, but I also wanted to talk to a new property standard about feeding wildlife. And this is near and dear to my heart, both as a person who lives here and as an ecologist and a biologist. We are encroaching into wildlife habitat, as per my first slide. Pollinators declining, habitats declining for everything, big and small, furred and feathered. And when we are feeding wildlife, we are promoting wildlife conflicts, whether it's with foxes or raccoons, right up to bears. 9 times out of 10 in these situations, it's the wildlife that loses. Either it's going to get hit by a car or it has to be removed because it's causing a danger to local residents. We're fortunate because we do live where we live. Petawawa is the heart of bear country. We have beautiful blueberries. We live on the base, a huge natural area there. We have a huge natural area in Algonquin Park, border the river. What a beautiful place, and how great it is that we do have places where you can see moose and bears and wolves and everything not too far out of town. And I'm so thankful you opened with a land acknowledgement, because we are in the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people, and the bear is their totem animal. Along the veins of the naturalized lawn, many of these municipalities have put in wildlife feeding bylaws as well, largely influenced by the presence of coyotes in urban areas. Because your wildlife, particularly bird feeders, draw in small mammals, which then draws in coyotes into the urban areas. We spend lots of time, especially if you're a municipal bylaw officer in some of these cities, chasing around critters or trying to get people to clean up their yards. It's costly. It costs OPP money or municipal police force. It costs municipality money. It costs the government money, and it costs people money in property loss and damage. And again, lots of social issues. Joe Blow likes the bears and is really happy that they're there. The neighbor wants them gone. We're all fighting amongst ourselves. One other quick point is Garrison Petawawa, which deflects a lot of wildlife issues for the town of Petawawa because they don't have very good garbage management systems in the PMQs. They're working really hard towards bear proofing all of their garbage receptacles, which the traditional food source for bears for a very long time. So when that food source disappears, they're coming our way down, where again, a lot of people don't have garages or places to store their green bin. Bird feeders is particularly the problem. A bird feeder full of black oil sunflower seeds provides an entire day's worth of calories for a black bear, which is why they keep coming back for more and more. Once you remove the food, there's nothing there for them. We're dealing with more and more avian diseases and more wildlife diseases, and these all be transmitted really easily at a food source, and that food source tends to be a large pile of bird seed, whether it be turkeys at your feeder or squirrels, rats in the city. We also are running into, again, people who are very well-meaning, but don't understand the impacts of what they're doing, and you're dealing with this in several places in Ontario, but in all sorts across Canada, for people thinking that they are helping, but they are deliberately eating wildlife and putting it into a very dangerous situation, particularly with it's a carnivore. So I put in the handout some items for the town to consider along the lines of wildlife feeding. And there's again hyperlinks to other municipalities that have done this. And there's lots of ends of the spectrum. But I would encourage viewing one that talks specifically about access to bird feeders in the summertime. Birds don't need to be fed in the summertime anyway. And that is something that the town could do to significantly reduce human wildlife conflicts in the town. And that combined with more naturalized lawns and more natural food available could be really beneficial. I won't spend the time going through all these because again, there's quite really in here with all the nitty gritty legal bylaws speak. But that is, yeah, the meat and potatoes, so to speak, for the bird feeders and potatoes. But I put this quote on here because as a biologist, as an ecologist, we continually say the same thing. And if somebody's asking me for advice about wildlife in general, it's to remove the food. You remove the attractants, the animals, whether it's a squirrel, whether it's a fox or a raccoon, goes away and you remove your conflict and you can coexist quite nicely. That's all I have for you.
Well, thank you very much, Lauren, for your presentation. It's nice to hear you say that Petawawa is a wonderful natural place to live. Our motto is dynamic by nature, and you're right, we are surrounded by some fantastic natural areas, Petawawa Terrace Park, Algonquin Park, all of the rivers and the shorelines that we have here. It is a great place to live, but as you say, we are coming into conflict more and more with nature and animals. I will say this about our bylaws. The last time this one was updated was 2000. We have taken steps here in the corporation to address our human resources shortfalls. So we do now have the staff that we require now to go over a lot of our bylaws and update them. And this is one that we were looking at anyways. So it's kind of timely that you come here and say our bylaws outdated, because it is. So with that, I'll open it up for questions and comments from the rest of the council. Councillor Kern.
Thank you, Mayor Service. Thanks, Lauren, for coming to present to us tonight. This is an interesting topic. I live in the country and I keep the weeds trimmed right in the vicinity of my house, and the rest of the 2 acres is just grows as it sees fit. And so basically I have a naturalized yard, but I'm a little out of tune when it comes to what happens in subdivisions and more built up areas. And I can appreciate the fact that one person may not want another person's drifting dandelion fluff or whatever it is that gets them excited. I think you've got one person with a finely manicured lawn with somebody next to them who doesn't, and you're going to wind up with conflict. I don't know what the answer is, and I know there are a lot of concerns out there that I wouldn't be aware of, and so I would like to see if we're looking at updating this bylaw anyway. This would probably be part of what we'd be looking at. We'll probably have a healthy discussion about that sometime down the road.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Sabrin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Lauren, for your presentation. I have to admit that I learned something very important. We've been feeding birds where I live. My husband loves to feed the birds. Did not realize that it was a huge attractor, and they didn't need to really eat in the summertime because there's a lot of other things for them to eat that are probably much healthier. But thank you for your presentation. Along the same lines as James, people who like the nice, tidy, trim lawn. We have a benefit where I live. I grew up on Sunset Crescent. I was on Ravenwood, so I've always lived in sort of semi-urban, and now I'm sort of semi-rural, and now I'm in a rural setting on Dorrance. So part of our yard is naturalized for that very reason. The conflict then, of course, between animals coming into built-up areas, child safety, welfare of our citizens is always important. As the mayor said, the bylaw has not been looked at for a very long time, and so this is timely, and it's probably very important to take a look at what's out there. As you said, we've got some real challenges as we head into the future, and we are seeing a lot of extinction among all sorts of species of wildlife and whatnot, and that probably can't be good for us in the long run. And not only that, I think I've seen where I live some of the most creative looking insects and bugs and things I have never seen in my entire life. And that, I don't know what's safe anymore and I don't know what's not safe. So, I think there is a balance to be struck for sure. It's always, nice for me to see on things like Facebook and whatnot, the protect the bees and don't break your lawn at these certain times. I think education is really important. And so I think there's a balance to be struck. And so I thank you for bringing this to our attention. And I look forward, hopefully our recommendation will be for staff to take a look at the bylaw and bring something back to the table for a robust discussion. Thank you.
Councillor Kuzia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Lauren. Thank you sincerely for this presentation. This was on my to-do list, as it were, coming to councils as part of what I had in mind during the election. So I'm really happy that you brought it up. I agree that we can definitely find that sweet spot between helping people take the opportunity to create more biodiverse lawns and making sure it's not, an avenue for infestations or hazards. There's a sweet spot there, and the Weed Act will help draw that line. So I'm definitely in favor of having this bylaw reviewed and improved. And thank you again for taking the time.
Further questions, comments? Councillor Driscoll.
Yeah, I'll just echo essentially everything everyone else is saying. I do agree. I like to leave my flowers grow and all the wildlife roam as they will. But I think in the bylaw we'll check it out, and it's definitely gives some good information. And I will be doing some more reading with your hyperlinks that you have been attached on some other examples from other municipalities and see what we can make work here.
Questions or comments? Okay, so thank you again, Lauren.
Thank you.
As we've all been saying, it is timely. And as Petawawa continues to grow and our housing and subdivisions continue to grow, we're going to have more and more people living in close proximity to each other. And I think it's important we strike a balance. But you've made some good points, and I think at the end of the day, all we can do is direct our staff, take a look at our bylaw that's a bit outdated, and come up and find a nice balance.
Thank you. And I'm happy to be a resource or for contacts in other municipalities or whatever. Please whoever you see fit.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
for
you
the
so much.
offer. Thank you. Okay, do we need a direction to staff?
No, we've already had the wheels in motion and staff are coming before council on a workshop with this bylaw, so we'll take this information into consideration and present before you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, our next presentation is all about a Petawawa biomass combined heat and power project concept. I'd like to welcome Jamie Stephen. He's a PhD Managing Director of Torchlight Bioresources. And Derek Neiber is also here. He's President and CEO of Forest Products Association of Canada. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. And we're looking forward to this interesting concept.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Service. And thanks for having us. I'll set the stage in terms of why we're here. So I was at County Council a couple of months ago, providing an update to County Council on the state of the forest sector in Ontario and across the country. And one of the things we talked about for the local sawmills is the importance, selling lumber or wood is one thing, but a big part of that revenue model is also selling the shavings and the chips. And we've seen 4 pulp mills. Well, we've seen a line go down in Timiskaming. We've seen a pulp mill close in Terrace Bay, another one close in Trenton, and another one close in Espanola. And it's kind of thrown the Ontario industry into a bit of a frenzy in terms of where are we going to sell our chips. So it started with an economic part of the conversation, and how can we better support the value chain, especially here in Renfrew County. Then we talked a little bit about fire, and one of our big fire risk problems is forest growing unto themselves and getting really dense and drying out in a warmer climate. And how can we find ways to thin the forest and turn value from what would otherwise be waste? And then the third thing we talked about was the decarbonization agenda that we're on as we think about energy and electricity demands in the province and across the country growing. We're going to need more nuclear. We're going to need, we'll probably need more hydro. I'm not sure we'll be able to dam any more rivers, but there are new demands. Plus, there's a whole suite of renewable options, solar, wind, biomass. And we've seen Confederation College in Thunder Bay now heat itself by biomass. And we're kind of musing, could CFB Petawawa someday lower its carbon footprint by turning to, generate heat by using biomass or what would otherwise be wood waste? So that was kind of the conversation. And then Mayor Service and I had a conversation after and set up a conversation with Jamie, who's done a lot of work in this biomass for heat and power space, not only across Canada, but has spent a lot of time in Europe. So we, the mayor said, could you come to council and maybe talk a bit about, so that's the setup, and I'll turn it over to Jamie to get into the meat of maybe what's possible.
Thanks, Eric, and thank you to Mayor and Council for the opportunity. So I'm coming to you from Mahone Bay, Nova Scotia, but spent a long time in Ottawa. My firm, Torchlight Bioresources, so we were founded in 2008. We are a bioenergy advisor and project developer. Basically, we work at the interface of the forest product sector and the energy sector, and really particularly when we talk about how we can continue to have a sustainable forest product sector, sustainably managed forests. It's really important that we recognize that energy has to be part of that mix. It's always been part of that mix. But we've had significant closures of pulp and paper mills. We used to have 16 pulp and paper mills in Ontario, and now we have 3. And so what that has done has led to a lack of markets for both sawmill residues and for low-grade wood. We have to have a market for low-grade timber. We can't only harvest saw logs, because what that does is decrease the genetic quality of the forest. So I'll get into what this could potentially look like. It's basically building upon what has been done hundreds and if not thousands of times around the world. This is not emerging technology. Really what we're trying to do here is find that alternative market that allows for the type of forestry that we want to do in Ontario, where we're enhancing biodiversity, but also to ensure that those jobs are retained and ultimately increased in the region. I will say that while there's significant climate benefits to this, often what we find with rural municipalities is that the primary driver is the forest product sector, keeping that going, but also ensuring that energy expenditures stay in the region. So the idea here is a combined heat and power plant that would generate both electricity that would be sold potentially to obviously to the provincial electricity grid, but also heat to CFB Petawawa. Longer term, or the garrison Petawawa. So longer term, there could be the potential for development of a district heating system. So this would be connecting buildings throughout the town and also potentially even into Pembroke, using the heat from this plant. And I can get into what that would look like. So why are we interested in bioheat? Why are we interested in using wood for heat? And I really want to caution this is very different than a wood stove. So the energy expenditures stay in the community. I think that's a big part of it. When you're buying natural gas, all the money spent on that natural gas leaves the community. And that's a cash drain from the community. When we talk about low carbon, zero carbon heat, it is usually the lowest when we're using biomass. It creates a proven large market for low-grade wood, and it also creates by far the most number of operating jobs per unit energy. These are all great for the local community. It supports that primary forest products industry. Ontario's timber harvest is down about 60–65% since 2004, and most of that has been closure of pulp and paper mills. There's still demand for lumber, but if you don't have a market for those residues, it's very challenging. Energy security and stability, obviously with military base, energy security is critical, but we do have lots of trees around here. And then finally, the proven technology with low risk. We do not go to municipalities and ask to try experimental technology and first of kind in the world. To give you an idea of what is possible, this is a plant in Stockholm, Sweden. This is in downtown Stockholm. This is much larger than we would be talking about for you. Most people don't know that Stockholm is actually heated with wood. So pretty much every building in Stockholm is connected to the city-owned district heating system. So this is an underground network of hot water pipes taking heat from this plant and others and distributing to homes. So this plant heats 190,000 residences and generates enough electricity for 150,000 electric vehicles. And obviously it's consumes about 1 million tons of wood chips per year. That's a very, very small pulp mill scale. It's 60% marine delivery, 40% by rail. This is another one in Sweden, primarily the one on the left there. This is 85 megawatts electrical and 200 megawatts thermal. Just got to go through a couple here. This is one that was built in 1986. This is in Joensuu, which is actually on the border with Russia. This is in a city that they call the capital of forestry in Europe because it's the home of the European Forest Institute. But this one was commissioned in 1986. It's just to show that they last a really long time. We actually did a video at this one earlier this year where I actually ended up going ice swimming. This one's in Jelgava in Latvia, commissioned in 2013. It's a bit smaller, 23 megawatts electrical, which is enough electricity for, let's say, 23,000 homes. This is a smaller one in Germany. As you can see, there's wind in the background, there's solar, and this is really part of the mix, right? And really where biomass has that competitive advantage is in the heat provision. We are generating both electricity and heat, but that's really where the economics work out. And then here's one in Uppsala. This one's heat only, but it kind of shows you it doesn't need to be an ugly black box either. So there's different ways of designing. So is this a new concept or anything like that? Well, the reality is when we look at the lowest carbon countries in the world, one of them is Sweden. So Canada, when we include our wildfires, we're at 75 tons of CO2 per person, and Sweden is at 1. So it kind of gives you an idea, and they have a higher GDP per capita. 40% of the energy in Sweden comes from bioenergy, most of that from the forest. And then where is that bioenergy demand coming from? So we have industry, right, which is largely pulp and paper and drying for lumber kilns, which you have around here obviously as well. And then residential, commercial, both those pretty much stable. Really where all the growth has been in this district heating and cogeneration of electricity, and that's what we're talking about today. When we look at district heating and the fuels that are used in them, so CFE, Garrison Petawawa already has a district heating system. It's the legacy system, so it's currently operated on natural gas with natural gas boiler, and then all that heat is distributed to all the buildings. What that means is that you can actually, as this graph shows, you can actually readily switch to alternative fuels. When hot water is your energy carrier, anything that creates hot water can be used to heat those buildings. You don't need to change anything in the buildings to switch them over to an alternative fuel. So the district heating systems in Sweden, they used to be largely petroleum products, oil, and then also some coal when oil prices went through the roof during the oil embargoes. But as you can see today, it's almost largely biomass and then also quite a bit of waste energy. So that is what dominates. There's actually been a reduction in the amount of electricity going into these systems. They overbuilt their nuclear and had excess electricity. But really, this is the proven approach for decarbonizing towns and cities in both countries. Same thing in Finland. I don't need to get into details. Even in Denmark, and we hear about Denmark doesn't have that many trees, but they are bringing in Copenhagen has even a bigger plant than the one I showed you for Stockholm. 100% wood chips, and they bring in those wood chips from other Nordic countries and the Baltics. So the key thing here is Canada is a standout, but not in a good way when it comes to district heating. These are the many other northern countries. And the key thing when we look at trying to increase the amount of renewable energy is the countries with the highest penetration of district heating also have the highest penetration of renewable energy within their energy systems. And the reason is that they're able to use biomass. Most people don't know 60% of renewable energy in the EU is actually bioenergy. District heating, as I mentioned, there's a central heat plant, distribution, all these buildings with underground hot water pipes. The existing network, the existing system at the garrison can be connected, but then over time there could be a build out to the other buildings in the community, which is what we're working on several communities around Canada. This is what those pipes look like. These are the large transmission pipes. They're pre-insulated. and they carry that hot water, and then basically what you're doing is doing an in-building connection, right? Single family detached homes, Denmark, for example, does 60,000 connections every year. They've already got over 70% of their population connected to the district. So why would you want to go down this path? It's fuel flexible, future proof. It enables the use of low cost local fuels. It's proven you can decarbonize the community without any modifications to the building envelopes or anything along those lines. And ultimately, it provides an opportunity for climate smart forestry and improved forest management and continued operation of forest productivity. Ultimately, it can also provide a source of income for municipalities. And so this is one of the things that I wanted to speak about today, is really about how town can play an important role in advancing biomass combined heat and power with district heating in the region. So in most of the cases in the Nordics, these systems are owned by the municipalities. So why is this? They're already in the water sewer business. This is just another set of pipes, and it's actually easier because you don't need to treat water. It's just a closed loop. There's no technology risk. It's pretty straightforward. Future proof. This is infrastructure that lasts 60, 70 years. And ultimately, this is keeping money in the local economy. That's what's driving a lot of these decisions. Jurisdiction, I mean, you don't have generally jurisdiction over electricity or transportation, but because heat is local, you do have jurisdiction. And then ultimately in Canada, we do have a number of pension funds that are very eager to deploy capital. So there is an access to capital on there. We've come up with some really rough numbers here. This does, the numbers on this is for peak load. That doesn't include the garrison. But it is possible to actually connect both Pembroke and Petawawa with a transmission pipe. Prague in the Czech Republic, for example, is heated with a transmission pipe that's 65 kilometers long. So 10 kilometers is manageable. And what having one large plant instead of two smaller plants allows you to do is actually to have economies of scale. So what that does, it's a bigger plant and it lowers the cost of energy for everyone. This is very rough. What we're looking to do here is complete a feasibility study. So because of the crisis in the forest product sector, and particularly in central Ontario, the government of Ontario has developed the $60 million Ontario biomass program. This is to create those markets for low-grade wood with ultimately biomass combined heat and power we believe is the key to this because it's the proven approach. So we're already doing a feasibility study for a very large combined heat and power plant in Toronto, actually at the Downsview. So that's the old airport in Toronto. It's about 500-acre development. But we're proposing an additional feasibility study, obviously, for this region. So look at a combined heat and power plant. What scale would it be? How could it, where would the fuel come from? How could it potentially connect to the garrison? What would the district heating system potentially look like? And obviously, what are the costs going to be for this? There's a lot of figuring out the right scale, the right design for these types of things. And so ultimately, what we would like to do is do that feasibility study and to provide you essentially with a report. There would be no cost to the municipality, no cash cost, but we would certainly be very excited to work with you and maybe with staff in kind time to design a system, a facility that meets your needs and delivers upon your municipal goals. So there's a request. The request would be for about $130,000, and the next deadline is November 30th. And what we would request is a letter of support, which we're happy to prepare a draft of. With that, thank you again for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the broader biomass combined heat power plans, district heating. I know it's quite a lot in a short period of time, and then obviously the proposed study as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Jamie and Derek. That was a lot of information packed into, I didn't even keep time there, about 15 or 20 minutes. So we did have an opportunity, myself and some staff, to meet with Jamie earlier today and got the expanded version, I'll call it. But it is very exciting and a very, yeah, you can tell it works. It's been working all over the world for many years. So having said all that, I know it was a lot to take in 15 minutes, but I'll open it up to council for questions and comments. Councilor Kujula.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you sincerely for your time. I have a list of questions, so I'll just ask one or two and we can give some other opportunities. Just a first question, talking about the local supply of biomass, would you ever need to import if local supply couldn't keep up?
So by import, do you mean from outside of the county? Yeah, so I mean, the county has certain boundaries, and a lot of it comes down to the transportation distance and the scale of the facility, right? The scale can be adjusted in general. Larger plants tend to be more economically viable because the per unit capital costs are lower. So the Optimus guide, that's what we want to work with you on as to what that could look like. Generally, you're not going to be transporting wood more than 150 kilometers. There's an economic reason for that. But you know, I think that obviously you start closest to the plant and work out, taking into consideration all your forest management goals, including biodiversity, et cetera, right? You don't want to over harvest for anything like this.
Councilor Kern.
Thank you for your service. Thanks very much for the presentation. This is very interesting. Just a couple of questions. I was looking at the IESO website, and so I see that part of our mix is biofuel, but it's less than 1%. So we've already got some in place. Any examples of where we've got that currently being fed onto the grid?
Yes. So there's a plant in Calstock, and then there's another White River, right? Forest Park. These are not very large facilities, so there's a kind of general thought with amongst the provincial government that this is a very expensive source of electricity. It is if you have a very small plant. We don't have tiny little nuclear plants. This is obviously not nuclear, but there's a reason we build really, really big nuclear plants. It's because you get those economies of scale. And so it's quite small currently because they're small plants and they're not super economically viable. So there is the biggest one actually is about 215 megawatts. It's the former Atikokan coal-fired power plant that's been converted to wood pellets. They hardly ever run it though, and you know it's not. Let's just say it's not ideal the way that it's been set up and designed. And so it's the generation is relatively small. If we want to talk about the scale of the opportunity though, if we took the difference between our, you know, the annual allowable cut, so this is the sustainable harvest level and what we actually harvest in Ontario, and you know, taking into consider conversion efficiencies, the amount of energy generated by that that amount of combined heat and power is more than all hydropower in Ontario. That's how much our cut has come down over the last 25 years. So it's a huge volume. I'd also point out that pulp mills, chemical pulp mills, more wood fiber that enters the pulp mill becomes energy than becomes pulp. So they're actually kind of energy facilities.
And I'll just quickly add that I think there's a moment of opportunity here with the current provincial government, because there is more investment and they are looking at more options to get more biomass, partially in response to the need to find markets for those chips, but also because of the energy mix requirements. So I think there is a window of opportunity here with the current government to who's probably paying more attention to this than previous governments have.
Thank you for that. And the second part of my question was it had to do with the cost of biomass versus, you know, energy gets costed out, price per kilowatt hour, or what it's going to cost you to, you know, from building up to actually heating the grid with it. there's a number attached to it. I know with nuclear it was, X amount per kilowatt hour. How does biomass stack up against the various other forms of energy?
Yeah, so on the electricity, so electricity is a higher value product than heat. So that's an important differentiator initially. But heat is the thing that we actually consume most. So a typical home, 80% of the energy consumption is heat. For space heating and hot water, and the electricity is 20%. The bill is for electricity can be much higher because it's higher value product. In terms of cost of generation, one of the reasons that we're trying to, would be doing the slightly larger plant, obviously, is to be competitive with nuclear. That's really the comparator in Ontario is nuclear, and biomass can be competitive with nuclear. There is a because you've got two products though, who carries the cost for the plants and the fuel varies depending upon what those contracts look like, right? So if the garrison was able to pay a little bit more, then the price going into the grid could be a little bit less, right? So you've got the two products coming out. The other thing that really impacts this is there's not one price for biomass. There is, what we call hog fuel. So this is the bark and lowest grade residues coming out of a sawmill. Then you've got the chips, and then you've got what we might want to call thinnings or commercial thinnings, sometimes stand improvement cuts, things that are done to enhance the health of the forest. Those are going to be higher cost than sawmill residues. So those all impact the delivered cost of the electricity. And so what we would do in a feasibility study is do a sensitivity analysis for different feedstock types, different scales, and different ratios of power to heat.
Deputy Mayor Saber.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Yes, a ton of information. I'm a little boggled by it all, to be very honest. And thank you to both Lisa and James for your previous question. Just from a perspective of me understanding the plant size in Sweden compared to the county of Orangeburg and what we have to offer here, is it comparable geography in terms of the size of the footprint, I guess, of the county of Orangeburg? Let's just use the county of Orangeburg. Is it sort of similar? And I always like when we don't have to spend money to get studies and to get to make progress in our community. So that's very attractive to me. But my other question then is, what would a typical plant sort of at the end of the day, cost? I'm sure you've done this. I just want to get my head sort of around that at the start quickly.
So the footprint for the actual plant itself, or for the feedstock draw area, the fuel draw area.
Yeah, so sort of the fuel draw area and as well the sort of, if we're talking about Petawawa and Pembroke, for example, is that plant in Sweden, does it service the same kind of population size or area size of capacity?
So the big one I showed you in Stockholm was much larger than you would need here. So a couple sizes much larger, right? A lot of the obviously residences provided are in multi-unit residential buildings versus single family detached home. The reality is that competing with natural gas, it will take a long time for connection of single family detached homes in these communities, right? At current pricing. The electricity size is about a third of what I showed. And so I think that's probably the metric to go by. The base itself, we've got estimates, but in general, there would be more heat created than required initially, and potentially build out a heat network over time. The one in Germany, for example, that I showed, that's a much smaller type thing. That's something that could absolutely be developed and would, it might actually be a bit small to supply the base, but it would have higher cost of electricity as well. So it's a little bit of a, designing it to match what is good for the forest in terms of availability and management and your goals for the forest. scale and also to make it economically viable. So that's part of what we would work out. In terms of, and I want to be very clear that we don't come to municipalities to ask for money, because we're generally not the level of government that has money. So it's really about working with communities. So for instance, we're working with the town of New Glasgow in Nova Scotia, we're working with the city of Quesnel in British Columbia. And it's about designing a plant that suits their needs and to really work with the community to end up with, you know, at a destination that everybody is supportive of and provides income to the municipality, etc. We had a quick discussion about ownership, for example. There's district energy systems in British Columbia that are municipality owned, but all the capital, the money comes from pension funds. So that's typically the source of that capital in Canada. And there's significant benefits to having municipal ownership, but maybe the money comes from someplace else. Or the money will come from someplace else. If we're talking about this, the scale of fund we'd probably be looking at would likely be between $200 and $400 million. So it's a sizable capital investment and certainly not something that the municipality would be responsible for in terms of debt or anything along those lines, because that's not reasonable.
Thank you.
Councilor Driscoll.
Mr. Mayor, I really do like the idea of it. I think it should be a way of the future. I've actually been looking into one for a personal off the grid area. I was near mixed small units like this now. This area was built on the logging industry. My grandfather worked in a log camp. My father worked in about 4 years. I worked in the forest industry. So I think a reinvigoration of that industry would be great for this community. We live in an area where we are covered in trees and we manage it very sustainably, which provides employment and food for future generations to come. And I really like that our energy costs would be staying within our municipality, with the job creation and then the money going to local companies to provide the resource for us. So I'm all on board to get more information on this. And I think it's a really good undertaking. Thanks.
Councilor Kutty.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just gonna try and tackle the rest of my questions. Thank you very much for your time and for your patience. Another question, will the plant ever burn construction and demolition debris or only will it burn clean wood?
That would be really up to you. If there's actually no problem burning those types of fuels. You just have to design the plant to be, if you have contaminants, for example, the plant has to be designed to handle those contaminants, like the flue gas treatment systems. So I mean, there's waste to energy plants in these, Stockholm and Copenhagen and Paris and other places that have lower air pollutant emissions than natural gas furnaces. So you can burn very dirty stuff, but you have to have the right systems in place. You can't take a plant designed to burn white wood or clean wood and put contaminated wood in it, because you wouldn't have the post-combustion equipment in place. So that would be up to you. I can't see there being a huge volume of that. So designing specifically to include that might be a little bit challenging, but as long as it's not contaminated, then it should be no problem.
So follow-up question. Now that we're talking about flue gas treatment, I'm wondering what type of technology is going to be used in this plant, because I'm concerned about fine particulate emissions, of course, the cardiovascular effects on our residents, and also the very fine particulate emissions, which defy logic and settle in the Arctic, et cetera. So I'm just wondering what tech you're going to be using.
Absolutely. So I can point out those plants that I showed. Those actually have lower air pollutant emissions than natural gas furnaces, right? The reason is because you centralized energy generation, and you can put that pollution control equipment that you can't at a small individual building level. So that's the big difference. The centralization, when you're burning stuff, distribute is not nice, right? You're trying to centralize it as much as possible. That's actually one of the benefits, for example, of electric vehicles. Is even if you're using thermal generation, you're reducing the distributed emissions. In terms of the, there's selective catalytic non-reduction, there's non-selective catalytic NOx reduction, there's bag filters, there's ESPs. In general, the plans that show residential buildings are across the street from the stack, right? So multi-unit residential buildings are across the street from the stack. They have the tightest environmental regulations in the world. And incidentally, the two countries that have the highest penetration of bioenergy in the world, Sweden and Finland, also have the highest penetration, or also have the cleanest air in the world. So the other thing as well is you got to think about what is the counterfactual. So the number one source of air pollution in Canada, more than everything else combined, is wildfires. And so when you burn wood in a large advanced combined heat and power plant, you're reducing emissions by 99.999% compared to open burn. So let's just say I'm not a fan of having wood stoves in cities. I don't believe that the air shed can handle that. That's what the numbers tell me. Just because I work in wood energy doesn't mean that it's beautiful all the time. So it's gotta be appropriate. I have wood stove, but I live in a town of 1,000 people. So, it's and our power goes out all the time. So it's all relative to where you are, and what is your baseline, right? But it can be designed to be very good.
Councilor Roots.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and all of the questions that I had have been answered. Typically, how many people for staffing, how many people would work in a plant of scale, say, for this type of area? Just for curiosity.
So, in this type of plant, you probably have, 30, 40 people in the plant itself, but really the job creation is in the supply chain, right? So a lot of these things they're good quality jobs at the plant, absolutely. But really it's all in that supply chain. When you're comparing, some studies from Austria have shown that, for per unit energy, you might have 2-3 people for natural gas, but you've got 80 for biomass, right? And so really the expenditure, the money staying in the community, but it's mainly on labor, right? So it's a real knock-on effect. And so obviously we don't, Alberta always talks about the bucket brigade. It's like, if we really wanted to create jobs, we just, get everybody to bucket bitumen down into the US, right? But that it's not the point of creating jobs. It's about creating good jobs, high-paying jobs, and ensuring that you have all those outcomes that you're looking for.
Thank you very much.
Further questions or comments?
I'm good. Let me simmer.
Now, if you have more, this is your chance.
Okay.
Thank you. I think the answer to a lot of my questions is, it depends, right? It'll depend on the scale of the plant, it'll depend on et cetera. I was really glad to hear you rattle off some of the latest technology for cleaning that flue gas, because really honestly, I understand that there's a need to create a market for an abundance of supply, but my interest is really in the health of the people who live here. So I wanted to make sure that any new plant we're building here, because I understand, yes, it will displace cosmically the carbon from natural gas, but we're also bringing those emissions here. I just wanted to make sure that we were taking that into account, the emissions that would come. So thank you for your answers, and I look forward to more information.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, and that's why we wanted to, number one, our credibility is on the line. Don't want to do one plant and done type of thing. So we want to work with you as well, and to design a plant that meets your needs, right? I mean, you're going to have slightly different requirements than very urban area, but different than where I am in Nova Scotia. So it's really about coming up with the solution that's here.
Okay, thank you, everybody, and excellent comments and questions from members of council, and fantastic presentation. And I can't believe you packed that much information into this short a time, which is fantastic. I had the good fortune to ask you a lot of questions earlier, and a lot of them were asked again by council. I think some of the things that maybe we missed as a council, we are beholden to the taxpayers of the town. So for the taxpayers who are here and the people watching, that they're probably wondering, well, what is the benefit to us? How does the town of Petawawa benefit from having a facility like this in the town? So of course, we talked about jobs and some other things, but there were some key points that didn't get addressed in terms of what is the benefit to Petawawa. So if you could add a couple points to that.
Absolutely. So, there are significant benefits to municipal ownership. So, you know, we can come in here and say we're building a private power plant and this is what it's going to look like. Hope you support it, that type of thing. Most of the systems in the Nordics are municipality owned and they generate income for the municipality, right? Municipalities are in the water sewer business, but people spend a lot more money heating their homes than they spend on water sewer. So the opportunity to increase income for the municipality as an owner of the plant is significant, right? So that's one thing. So you see, for example, there's in Ontario, there's a utility called Electra. It's owned by the city of Mississauga, the city of Brampton, city of Vaughan, et cetera, et cetera. You know, and they're partnered with owners, and that generates income for the municipality. I think that's really, really critical for the taxpayers in Petawawa. You know, we are when it comes time to say this is a route that you want to go down, and I would I don't want to spend time doing something that you're not fully supportive of at all. Is that there's the taxpayers would not be spending any money on this plant, right? It would be municipal ownership does not mean that you invested in it, right? Other than like you had to buy shares for $10, right? It is about the financing can come from someplace else. There are benefits in terms of contracting, etc., to municipal ownership, and that's why we are here coming to you. We also want to make sure that those benefits are realized in the community, and obviously the municipality is best placed to determine what is in community's best interest. So, it's really about income from the municipality with, not, I know it sounds kind of fanciful, but no money put down by the municipality, but is because you are located here, this is your community, and there is specifically an opportunity in terms of the garrison, and then the need, as Derek's outlined, to create this market because of the closure of public vehicles.
Thanks for that. And we also discussed, there's also the property tax factor, that this is a large facility being built within our boundaries. So there will be an annual property tax collected from that corporation. We're also reducing our carbon footprint. We are a small community, but small communities can do big things in terms of reducing their carbon footprint. We have a net zero plant right now that's nearly finalized down at our wastewater treatment facility, where we're taking our waste along with feedstock and we're going to create renewable natural gas and also create some hydro as well. Again, we're a small community, but we can do big things when it comes to reducing our carbon footprint. We've addressed the environmental factors. There's also the NIMBY factor. This plant has to go somewhere, and it may be close to somebody's property. As you mentioned, in Stockholm, the plant is right in an urban setting, right next to apartments and other residences as well. So that's always a factor to consider too when you're in town like ours. But I think it is very interesting and it is very exciting, and the fact that you're here speaks to the fact that we have a market in Garrison, Petawawa, with the infrastructure already in the ground, and all it takes is a different type of hookup for the biomass energy that would be created here. So all in all, very exciting in so many ways. And thanks again. And I think what you're asking us for here is just our support in terms of a letter for your application to the Ontario Biomass Program. Is that correct? So we don't really have a recommendation written up here, but what Jamie and Derek are asking us is that on behalf of the town of Petawawa, we write them a letter in support of their application to the Ontario Biomass Program, which is not specific to our municipality or?
No, the plan, the proposed plan is obviously specific to your
Yeah.
municipality, but the program is Ontario-wide.
Are we comfortable with doing something like that? If we are, I need a mover. Should I craft up a sentence first?
Well, council supports, the mayor, you have the authority from your office to write a letter of support. If you're in agreement, council supports that this afternoon.
Okay. So I don't need any specific language right now, other than that we're writing a letter of support for the Ontario Biomass Program. And are we writing it on behalf of Torchlight Bioresources?
Yeah. Yes, we would be the primary applicant to the program for the feasibility study. But as I said, we want to design a plan that meets your needs.
Councillor Kadim.
I was just wondering, as an interim step, we could get maybe a little bit of feedback from, say, our planning department, just to understand how this would fit a little more.
Yeah, I get your question, but I'm wondering if this letter of support is taking us to that necessary step.
That would be the step after.
My understanding of this, correct me if I'm wrong, is we're basically being asked to provide a letter of support for a feasibility study.
I see, gotcha.
Okay, so that would take into account location and feedstock and a whole bunch of other, or a whole host of other issues or items, right? So, sorry, my voice is echoing in my ear. So really that's all you're being asked of right now. I think if council's in agreement, you provide us with direction to craft a letter of support for Torchlight Industries for that feasibility study.
I can say that siting would be a critical component of the feasibility study.
Councillor Kadim.
That's just the thing. I just wanted, I was hungry for more information, so it sounds like I'll get it. So yeah, I would support that.
So just to make sure we're all on the same page, this is a letter of support for Torchlight Bioresources for their proposed application to the Ontario Biomass Program for a feasibility study. Very good. Okay, if everybody's comfortable, I need a motion. Moved by Deputy Mayor Sanford, seconded by Councillor Carmody, that Petawawa write a letter of support for Torchlight Bioresources for their proposed application to the Ontario Biomass Program for a feasibility study. Is that enough, Tom? Okay. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay. That was a lot more time than you probably thought you had to spend here, wasn't it? I think it was important for something this complicated and this important. I think we need to make sure we get all our questions asked and answered. So it was great that you spent this amount of time providing us with all that feedback and all the answers. And we look forward to hearing from you more in the future, for sure.
Thank you so much, Council. Really appreciate it.
Safe trip back to Mahone Bay.
There you go. Gotta get a map out.
Okay, we're gonna carry on. We don't need to take a tiny break. We're good. Okay, I'll carry on with bylaws. Bylaw 1685/24 being a bylaw to establish a procurement and asset disposal policy for the town of Petawawa. The third and final reading. I need a motion for the third and final reading of bylaw 1685/24. Moved by Councillor Coutu. Seconded by Councillor Roots. That bylaw 1685/24 being a bylaw to establish a procurement and asset disposal policy for the town of Petawawa be read a third and final time. Just as an FYI for anybody who's confused by us just doing the third and final reading, we passed the first two readings at an earlier meeting, and it was tabled or moved forward based on us needing to amend one section of the policy. Okay, and is everybody good then? I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Carried.
Appropriation of the town of Petawawa, bylaw 1685/24, being a bylaw to establish a procurement and asset disposal policy for the town of Petawawa. This constitutes third and final reading of bylaw 1685-24, the 16th day of September 2024.
Next up, we have bylaw 1687/24, being a bylaw to appoint a deputy treasurer in the town of Petawawa. I thought we already had one. I need a motion for first and second reading of the bylaw. Moved by Deputy Mayor Safford, seconded by Councillor Roots, that bylaw 1687/24, being a bylaw to appoint a deputy treasurer for the town of Petawawa, be read a first and second time. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried.
Corporation of the Town of Petawawa, bylaw 1687-24, being a bylaw to appoint a deputy treasurer for the town of Petawawa. This constitutes first and second reading of bylaw 1687-24.
I need a motion for third and final reading of bylaw 1687/24. Moved by Councillor Coutinho. Seconded by Councillor Driscoll, that bylaw 1687/24, being a bylaw to appoint a deputy treasurer for the town of Petawawa, be read a third and final time. Any comments, questions? I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried.
Corporation of the Town of Petawawa, bylaw 1687-24, being a bylaw to appoint a deputy treasurer for the town of Petawawa. This constitutes third and final reading of bylaw 1687-24, the 16th day of September 2024.
And congratulations, Paula Turca. It is now official. Thanks for all your work as acting deputy treasurer. Now you're officially doing your role.
Thank you.
Maybe now that you're officially a deputy, you have to step your game up. Maybe,
I'll do my best.
I know.
Okay, next we'll go to correspondence. We have a letter from Cunningham, Swan, Cardy, Little, and Bonham LLP regarding the Code of Conduct complaint letter from Tony Fleming, LSO Certified Specialist in Municipal Law. So this was stemming from our Code of Conduct case from a member of one of our committees. And there was a complaint filed by a member of our community about conduct of this certain individual. This letter merely summarizes the case and gives us some outlines and recommendations on where we should proceed as a corporation. So I hope everybody had a chance to review the letter and look at how the case unfolded and what the recommendations are. Are there any questions or comments on the letter? Or any of the recommendations? No? Okay, so out of this, we've got two recommendations and I'll read them to you. The first one is that council directs the clerk to make the Code of Conduct complaint report public on the town of Petawawa's website. Second one is the council directs the clerk to provide a copy of the Code of Conduct policy to all members of boards and committees going forward, and include all members of boards and committees in any training received by council on the Code of Conduct. So part of this is stemming from the fact that perhaps this certain member and other members of committees at the town of Petawawa were not aware of the Code of Conduct. So I think it's important that we as a corporation ensure that all of our committee members are properly trained, especially when it comes to Code of Conduct and how they interact with members of the community, especially since they're representing the corporation of the town of Petawawa once they volunteer for one of our committees. Do we just need one motion, not three? One. Okay, is everybody good with I guess it's one big recommendation. Question? Deputy Mayor Safford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Will we deal with the public apology separately, or that was one of the recommendations as well?
It was one of the recommendations in the letter from the board. Would council like to deal with that as an actual recommendation that council should consider? Yeah. Okay. So I guess we need a separate resolution for that one, right? Okay, you want me to deal with these first two first?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's deal with the first broad recommendation, which is the code of conduct. I need a motion, if you're comfortable, I need a motion. Moved by Councillor Coutu, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sabrin. That council directs the clerk to make the code of conduct complaint report public on the town of Petawawa's website. And that council directs the clerk to provide a copy of the code of conduct policy to all members of boards and committees going forward, and include all members of boards and committees in any training received by council on the code of conduct. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That one is carried. Okay, the next letter. So within the letter, there was another recommendation. Okay, one of the other recommendations within the letter is that we recommend the council issue a public reprimand to the member and request a public apology. Questions or comments on that one? Deputy Mayor Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you had earlier stated, whatever the actions are of any of our committee members, ourselves included, and the staff, reflect on the town of Petawawa. And I think in this day and age, people need to know that the various avenues that they utilize to provide feedback or information to people are public, and especially if people are in leadership positions. So I don't think that we need to, what I would like to suggest is that we take the second part of that recommendation, and that we strongly suggest that the person in question provide a public apology to the individual. That's it. I don't think that we need to go any further than that, but I think that suggestion, and the individual does with that what they want. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so of the two recommendations, one is a public reprimand from council. The other is request a public apology. Deputy Mayor Sabrin is suggesting that we skip the first one and ask the member to issue a public apology. Any other thoughts, comments on the issue? Councillor Kermit.
Thank you for your service. I'm not even sure what a public or what a reprimand would look like the paid or so I'm not sure where we would go with that, but a public apology seems to be something that's very doable and probably called for.
Further comments? Questions? Okay, so it seems like there's not an appetite for a public reprimand, basically because there's no real outline or guideline on how to do it. There's nowhere written in any policies that we have in terms of our committees or committee members that this is something that should take place. So that's a difficult one. So I guess what we're considering here now is that we request that this member issue a public apology. I guess I've heard also that what is a public apology? How do we define that? So is it difficult to ask someone to make a public apology without first defining what that is? Is it this individual just approaching the other individual and offering a one-on-one personal apology? What is the definition of a public apology? Councillor Kermit.
Thank you for your service. I would think that the same forum that generated the problem to begin with should be used for the public apology. Makes sense to me.
Deputy Mayor Sabrin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Your first suggestion would, in my opinion, be considered a private apology. So I think using the forum under which the behavior was executed would be appropriate. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I guess my suggestion also was that we strongly suggest that they, not that we require, that we strongly suggest, and they do with that what they want on their own.
Their comments or questions? Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just put my 2 cents in. I don't think that we should be forcing him or strongly recommending to make a public apology. He's not aware that he's bound by the code of conduct, and he has a private citizen, and I know he's on one of our boards. He acted in what she thought was fine, which she now later learned that it's not. We are taking steps to change that for the future, that all members will be known within our code of conduct. So I will not be going for something in public policy.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Couturier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to agree with, the deputy mayor, I don't think it's appropriate or fitting to require it being, also there's no mechanism, and it really is the free choice. I'm with Adam as far as freedom of speech goes. But as far as us maintaining our policies, given that letter that we received saying this fell below the level of decorum and respect required, I think we should just at least make our position clear that this is below the standard. We recommend an apology, and again, they can do with it what they will.
Questions or comments? So I think it sounds to me like it's important how we word this, should this get voted through. Because I've heard request, strongly suggest, force. So I think what I'm hearing is just request, a simple request is what we're looking for in terms of what we're going to vote on here. Okay, so let me try and wordsmith this one. So I think the resolution or the recommendation is that we request the individual. Someone's going to help me.
If I may, why don't you just keep it very simple? That council requests the member issue a public apology.
The council requests the member issue a public apology.
It's short, sweet, and if he chooses to, like Councillor Coutu alludes to, that's his call.
Okay. So that is the recommendation that we're voting on. Everybody good? I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Oh, you haven't got a mover in a second.
Oh. Getting late in the evening. I need a mover. Moved by Deputy Mayor Sadler. Seconded by Councillor Carmody. That council requests the member make a public, can I say that right, Tom?
Issue a public.
Issue a public apology. Now I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Okay. Next, we have a request, and you saw the written request. It's from Stellar Toy Drive. And the individual is Billy Joe Brown, owner, operator of Stellar Studio, Inc. So I'm hoping you had time to review the letter. Last year, this same individual and group put on a 80s fundraising dance that was very well attended and quite successful. And you'll notice that a lot of the money went to local schools and also they repaired a furnace of an individual in need here in town. And now they're planning a second event this year to be held upstairs at the Petawawa Civic Center. Country Hoedown. I hope I got that name right. But again, it's the same group. And they're hoping that they can raise enough funds once again to go back to the schools, specifically breakfast, lunch programs, and toy drive. So a lot of good causes. And what they're asking for, I guess it's $1,200 rental fee right now upstairs in the Petawawa Civic Center, which is our standard rental rate.
I believe it's in the arena.
Well, it's on the floor of the arena? Yeah. Okay, so on the floor of the arena. And what they're asking is that council consider discounting or waiving the fee for this charitable organization so that more of their funds can go towards the charitable causes. I'll open it up for questions and comments. Deputy Mayor Sadler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are a lot of organizations and a lot of people who do a lot of things in our community to raise funds for organizations that require them. I think that by supporting this, it would set a very dangerous precedent. It could be interpreted that we are in favor of one organization over another, and I would rather see us take a look at a procedural policy, a recommendation as to what that could look like in the future so that it is fairly and consistently applied, if at all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Kern.
Thank you, Mayor Service. I agree with the Deputy Mayor 100%. We have nothing in terms of policy that's guiding us here, and we should not be in a position where we're saying this group gets a discount, this group does not get a discount, this group gets in-kind services. We should have a policy in place which makes this fair and equitable across the board so that all groups are treated the same.
Councilor Roots?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I totally agree with the last two statements. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? We had a discussion about this other times, because this has come up before. I'm gonna turn it over to the CAO. We've had some previous discussions about this very item.
Thank you, your worship, through you, and thank you for the comments, because they're exactly right on. I've, in the last year and almost a half now, oh my God. I've thought many times that, that one of the things we are lacking is grant and aid policy or program, where we would set a yearly budgeted amount that people would apply for, or organizations would apply for assistance from the town, rather than, as you already indicated, piecemealing it. So I think what we'll do with the direction I'm hearing right now is we will definitely do some research and bring back some options for you on that. The other option I'll put out there, and we'll also take a look at other municipalities and see how they handle it, is having a nonprofit rate for facility rentals that might curb a lot of requests from the nonprofits in our community, and how we might deploy a nonprofit rate for those facility rentals, thus supporting those nonprofits and the activities they have inside our community, the work that they do, but also making sure that we're not having a ton of organizations coming to us with a handout, that we're already providing a percentage decrease in that facility rental for legitimate nonprofits.
Any questions, comments? I think everybody's made some excellent points in terms of this type of request. It's hard to say yes to one and no to others. So I think it's important that we have a policy in place. And if it means we have to explore what some other communities have, I like the idea of a grant in kind policy, and that what it was called?
Grant and aid program,
Grant and aid
but just my experience in the past of how this is handled is you would set a grant and aid cash amount where you're providing, financial support to an organization, then an in-kind amount that you're willing to allow per year for the municipality to support causes or organizations.
Deputy Mayor Sandler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to our CAO. We've long struggled with these types of requests at the budget time, and it seems to me that the lack of information out there in the community could come to be a poor reflection on it. And so I like the idea of establishing something that is clear and it's well known to everybody. And it's not just the first person who comes through the door, the person that I really like the most or whatever. It's fair, it's consistent. And I also like the not-for-profit piece as well. So thank you for that.
Councilor Coutu.
Thank you, and thank you, Scott. The not-for-profit pricing is a great idea for sure, and I just wanted to encourage Billy Joe Brown, because I love what she's doing, and we just need more of this. But this sounds like a way we can platform that more sustainably, more transparently. So I'm really glad that she asked in a way, because it spurred this conversation, and I wish her luck with her events. And school lunches for children, that's a huge problem here. So I hope lots of people attend her event, and we can help her in the future maybe. Thanks.
Again, thanks for all your comments and suggestions, and I think we have a way forward with this, and it's definitely a need to come up with a policy that's fair to all involved. But I'll follow up with Councillor Coutu said, congratulations to Billy Joe Brown for everything she's done in the past and what she plans to do this month, and I'm sure far into the future. It's great to have people in our community like this that want to raise money and help. So yeah, wish her the best of luck. Hopefully this will pave the path forward to help other nonprofits in the future. Okay, next we'll go to some minutes. We have council and committee meeting minutes from September 9th, 2024. I need a motion to approve those minutes. Moved by Councilor Root, seconded by Councilor Driscoll, that the minutes of the council and committee meeting held on September 9th, 2024 be accepted by council and that resolutions from that committee become resolutions from council. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes? I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Next, we have minutes from the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee meeting from June 26, 2024. I need a motion to approve those minutes. Moved by Councilor Coutu, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sabrin and Councilor Coutu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep my comments brief. This is actually a very brief meeting. But we did have the honor of hosting Juanita Camara, who is the civilian co-chair of the Defense Visible Minority Advisory Group on the garrison. So the committee's working hard to make some great partnerships up there, and we're hoping to work with this committee specifically on an anti-racism campaign somewhere in the future. We're getting some brainstorming together. They've had a very impactful campaign on the garrison lately, and they're willing to share with us what they did, and maybe you can see how it can work here. Other than that, we're still reviewing the community survey report. We're really excited to bring that to council and share with you what we learned from the community with all the questions that we asked. We're just now making sure that we're getting all the committee's input. We have a new member who may be joining us soon, so we're looking to get a broader perspective on what we've done. And finally, on the topic of intimate partner violence, we did a little review, and we're looking to pinpoint a way that the town can increase awareness, help to contribute to change the societal attitudes that lead to this problem, and then also support survivors. So look forward to more from that. And I'll just highlight that September 19th coming up is Take Back the Night. So anyone you know who wants to come out and just support women and support survivors, that's going to be a great event. So that's it for me. Any questions you have, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions on the report? And thanks for bringing up the Take Back the Night event that's happening this Thursday at 6:30 at the Center. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Next, we have a staff report. LEG-09-2024. Town of Petawawa Municipal Website Development and Redesign RFP column.
Thank you, Mayor Service. Through you to council, before you is my legislative services report regarding the award of tender for the Town of Petawawa Municipal Website Development and Redesign RFP. The recommendation before council is that council approves the award of tender at Min 01 Municipal, or Min 01 2024 Municipal Website Development and Redesign to the lowest bidder being Calumet Media and Consulting in the amount of $22,750 plus HST. I'll just give you some brief background. I think my report was pretty detailed in regards to the history and how we got to where we were or where we are today. But we currently, our website is currently not under contract, and our original 5-year contract that we had awarded to Whitewater Creative back in 2015 through an RFP process expired just before COVID in December of 2020. And we operated under the final year by subcontracting that to Blue North Studios for our website support. So leads us to where we are today. We need to update our website basically in all aspects to get more familiar and more modern, more accessible, more user friendly, meet the accessibility requirements standards, which are going to be in place in 2025. And what's going on? And so in reviewing all our applications that we received, have some background and discussion and analysis later on in the report. It wasn't just based on price, although price was in this case very good and actually the best out of the 7 applications. We received 7 firms submitted proposals. The RFP went out in June, and of the 7, 4 were disqualified. Sorry. For having incomplete proposals, so that left us with 3. Of the three, I think you'll see in my report, there was Bellwoods, Calumet, and the us them. Quite a significant price difference in the three. But also when you look at my analysis that myself and our committee of Scott, Christine, Kate Bennett, and here Nash, our IT coordinator, we all met and reviewed the applications, and you'll see our choices for the different scopes, the qualifications, the approach, and the financial aspect. Calumet came in at first across the board, other than in one they were second. They have the most municipal experience of all the acceptable proposals that of the firms. They dealt with Pontiac, Alumet, the seven municipalities across the river, and they're really wanting to hit the ground here in Ontario, and really looking forward to having Petawawa be their kind of their first Ontario municipality. So under financial implications, council is aware we budgeted for this in 2023. And in 2024, it's well within our budget that we had budgeted. I think it was 50,000, 49,000, I believe exactly. So we're well within that. And the recommendation from staff is to pursue Calumet Media as our new website provider. I'm happy to take any questions if council has any.
Questions on the report? I guess the only question I have is in terms of timeline, once this gets passed, what are we looking at in terms of development and when they hit the enter button and everything is complete?
Yes, once they're eager to hit the ground running, and actually they will take very little time for them to do the implementation phase. There's a little bit of information gathering, but they go in the back end and they kind of move what we have currently and move everything over. And I think we're hoping to have it started in the month later this month and in the month of October. And I think we will see something starting by the new year.
Okay, any other questions? No, I need a motion. Moved by Councillor Carmody, second by Councillor Coutu. The council approves the award of tender admin-01-2024 municipal website development and redesign to the lowest bidder being Calumet Media and Consulting in the amount of $22,750 plus HST. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, next up, it's been a while since we did councilor reports. We'll start with Deputy Mayor Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of points. In the month of August, I had attended several Emergency and Protective Services United event meetings in preparation for the actual event on the 7th of September. And I also attended the Legacy of Hope launch on the 24th of August, held at the Base Museum in partnership with the town of Petawawa. Very impactful with respect to residential school system and the impacts, generational impacts that are experienced and will be continued to be experienced long after I'm on this earth for sure. On the 29th, I attended the launch for the Petawawa Ramble, and I'd like to congratulate the Ramble Committee. It's going to be an absolutely amazing weekend, and they put a lot of hard work into it. So well done to the entire team, as well as the grand opening of our comfort station, which I can't wait to be being very well utilized. And I know that it will be. It's on our Algonquin Trail, and thanks to all who are involved. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Carmody.
Thank you, Mayor Service. So I can report that I've attended the launch of the Petawawa Ramble as well as the opening of our comfort station, and very much looking forward to the opening of Taco Bell.
Why?
Councillor Carmody wants to make a run for the board.
Run for something.
Councillor Coutu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too was at the Pumpkin Ramble launch and at the opening of the Comfort Station. It's been great watching the Pumpkin Ramble grow over the years. I think it's one of my favorite events, and I love describing it to people because their jaws drop because it's just been such a fun event. So I'm really looking forward to the residential harvest display contest kicking off soon. So I'm going to try and get my family out to make some pumpkin folk and have jazz up our neighborhood. But just to say, no, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Driscoll.
Mr. Mayor. On August 29th, I also attended the Welcome Station opening and the Rural Ramble kickoff. It was great to see the turnout for the event and excited to see the completed project. However, hopefully this is just a start to a redevelopment of that area. On September 5th, I attended a global security update meeting hosted by MP Gallant alongside other municipality leaders. September 7th, I attended the Emergency Responders United event. Congratulations to our team that organized the event. We had a lot of work put into it, and it was a great first year. Looking forward to taking part next year. September 10th, attended a P-band meeting. We received our FICE report from the town of North Grenville. Our packet was also delivered to them, and a big shout out to the great job done by Christine and Rudy on their work. With more on the report to follow, they will give you some more details. Rural Ramble attendance update is all looking very positive. Most things are sold out or very close to. Sponsorships are all fully sold out. And the team working on the event, okay, sorry, there's a small amount of funding left as well for CIP for businesses looking to put applications in. So if you're looking to hopefully get on that soon. And on September 14th, I attended the family day at 450 Pack and other topics about that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Roots.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also, on August 29th, I attended the kickoff launch of the 2024 Petawawa Ramble and the opening of the ceremony of the Petawawa Comfort Station. And what a nice asset to have here in our town, and so many opportunities. I see a great future for this for our residents and the visitors to our town. September 3rd, I participated in the second virtual meeting with the CEO School Board in regards to business practices at Festival Hall. And September 6th, I chaired a Festival Hall meeting for the consortium and staff to discuss ongoing business, relationships, and new opportunities for the facility as we enter a very busy fall-winter period. That's it, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And I apologize to the CAO. It's been a while since I got there. Chat. I'll try and make it quick. First, I'll give you a little update on the county council meeting from August. Just sort of an unfortunate report, but Mayor Bennett of Portland is suffering some ill health right now, and he's hospitalized. So Deputy Mayor Dana Proctor has had to assume his role and fill in for him at the county as well. So we wish him speedy recovery. Emergency Services Department at the county was successful in a grant from Ontario Community Emergency Preparedness, and they spent the money on a gravity feed sandbag machine. You can fill 900 sandbags per hour, and it's available to all the municipalities in Renfrew County. So hopefully it doesn't happen again, but should flooding happen again, we have to make sure we get our application in first so we can have the sandbag machine here in Petawawa. There'll be a further report later this month from the county in terms of the warming center, but it appears as though the warming center will be needed again in the city of Pembroke. Still to be determined is who's going to operate it, who's going to own it, committees and all that sort of thing. But it's got to happen soon. As we know, we're already in the middle of September. They put out an expression of interest for affordable housing proposals, and they got 18 proposals from 13 proponents for affordable housing projects on county land across Renfrew County. There'll be more details on what those are coming up soon. On September 26th, there's a Renfrew County Municipal Day from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. and from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the county building. So if anybody wants to know what happens at the county and what the county does for you across Renfrew County, you should attend this day. All the county departments will be there with booths and equipment telling everybody what they do and what they provide. As well, the Renfrew County District Health Unit will be there, Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, and Eastern Ontario Regional Network will all be there to inform the public what they provide. The Operations Department has been discussing automated speed enforcement on county roads. So in other words, speed cameras on county roads. We do have some county roads here in the town of Petawawa. What we don't know is where they're going to put them or if in fact they are going to approve this project. That'll happen in a couple of weeks at the next county council meeting. Just so you know, it's all done through AMO and LAS. And these are turnkey operations where the cameras The data management and the ticket processing is all done by these outside entities, and there's no investment by the county. So we'll see what happens later this month, whether they decide that this is something they want to do on some of the county roads. Just so you know, it can only be done in community safety zones. So in front of schools, playgrounds, or recreational facilities. For my part, on August 27th, I went to the Dean's Luncheon at Algonquin College. August 29th, as with all of you, at the Comfort Station opening, which was a great day for the town of Petawawa, and really for anybody in Renfrew County, and even those that come from elsewhere, can have use of that fabulous facility here in our town. Looking forward to even further development around that area. September 3rd, had a meeting with the base commander. September 4th, we did a ceremonial tree planting at Silver Threads building in honor of Al DeCoste, a longtime volunteer. September 7th, I participated in the Emergency and Protective Services United event, although my back is wishing I didn't, but I did. Our team came third. We might have come first if it wasn't for the anchor. That was me. The next day I did the Rotary Golf Tournament. On September 9th, Development and Property with the county. September 10th, Renfrew County Housing and Community Services meeting. On the 11th, I participated in the OPP Special Olympics torch run. And fortunately for me, it was a torch walk. We didn't have to run, so it was good. But it was great to see all the athletes out. And they picked a good time. It was around 12:30 on a business day. And we marched right down Petawawa Boulevard, so that we were meeting all the lunch traffic, and so donations were great. Then we went to Lady of Sorrows, and there was a soccer baseball game, which was kind of neat. And on the 12th, we had a meeting with the Petawawa Cultural Committee in terms of our healing gazebo, healing circle. And great headway was made in terms of what is going to be built, where it's going to go. We're at the stage now where we're just sending it back to them for a little bit more cultural input. And we're hoping to have I'm not going to say a giant press release, but more details to be given on Truth and Reconciliation Day as part of that ceremony. So it's very exciting, and they were all very excited about the project as a whole. Just to let you know that today, Monday, was the second day that our Community Assessment Center was open in our Petawawa Centennial Family Health Center. It's open from 8:30 to 11:30, so last Monday was the first day. Today was the second day, so it's open for 3 hours every morning, staffed by paramedics from Renfrew County. It's not a traditional walk-in clinic. You have to phone VTAC, and they will refer you to the CAC as an in-person walk-in clinic. So you can go there to get assessed, but you have to make the appointment through VTAC. Apparently there were 4 appointments on the first day, and it was much busier today. So I'm sure as the word gets out, it's a great resource for the residents of the town of Petawawa, not having to drive to the Emerge at Pembroke or the Emerge at Deep River. You'll be able to go there. This is just a pilot project, and we're hoping that the hours and the days will expand soon in the future. And just a couple of notes on Special Olympics. Kyle Tremblay, not from Petawawa, but he was from Deep River, and he was in Paris competing in the men's compound bow event. He's a wheelchair athlete. He lost in the quarterfinal on a count back, so narrowly missed going to the medal round. Came 6th in the world in men's compound bow. And Jolan Wong, who is a sit volleyball player who trains right up here in Petawawa at Dundonald Hall with a coach, won a bronze medal for Canada in sit volleyball. The first time Canada's ever won a medal in that event, and they beat Brazil in the bronze medal. So congratulations to Jolan Wong. And that's it. There's no closed meeting. I need a motion for the confirming bylaw. Moved by Councillor Driscoll, second by Councillor Couture. That bylaw 1688/24 be read a first, second, and third time and passed. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried.
bylaw 1688-24, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on September the 16th, 2024. This constitutes first, second, and third reading short of bylaw 1688-24, the 16th day of September, 2024.
I need a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Carmody, second by Councillor Driscoll, with the meeting adjourned to the call of the mayor. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried.